Yo, what's up? I'm Tribal Trick. Welcome to the channel where I talk about how the human mind works and explain why people do the things that they do based on that. What I want to talk about in this video is why men don't like women over 50. Now, in my experience, I've known heaps of women over 50 that spend the rest of their lives alone. Now, there's many reasons, but I'm going to touch on just a few, or maybe less than a few. I don't know about this smoke. Okay, so one of the main things is that as women get older, their egos grow bigger and bigger and bigger. The more they practice ego bloating exercises, the bigger their egos get, the more bossy they get, the more dominant they get. And I've had this experience. Now, when I was young, I didn't like older women because I was getting young girls. Plus, when you're young, and I'm pretty sure this is the main reason, is because they were bossy and dominant. They wanted to tell you what to do. And still, I find women that are over 50 that are good looking, they're single, they want to date, but they make it impossible being bossy and dominant. Trying to boss you around. I've tried to date some, but I get turned off as soon as I get bossed around by anybody. As I've already explained, nobody likes being bossed around. So that's one of the main reasons. But what I want to explain in this video is something that affects the growth of their ego, and it makes them more bossy, because the bigger their ego gets, the more bossy that they are. And what I'm talking about is women's addiction to validation. Now, young guys do like older women, but because of their attitude, which I'm going to explain, they lose attraction. But when you get into your 40s, you start to look at older women. Some guys still would date older women if they didn't have these bossy, dominant characteristics and the others that I'm about to talk about. So what happens is that a lot of women, especially the pretty ones, and these are the ones that remain pretty even into their 50s, they end up having a huge addiction to validation, getting looked at by guys. Now what happens is that when they get into their 40s and 50s, when guys stop looking at them, they start getting pissed off at guys. Because the way that it works is like this, and this is why I talk about addictions. Because wanting validation is the same as an addiction. That's an ego bloating exercise. The ego wants more and more and more, and it becomes an out of control addiction. And it is for many girls, especially pretty girls. They bank on their looks. Many these days make money off their looks, get tons of validation, tons of likes from their looks, not understanding that that becomes an addiction that they're going to have to deal with when they lose it. Now what happens is, and this happens to any addict, you can get an addict, a drug addict, put him in jail where he can't take drugs. Now I know there's drugs in jail, but let's say there's a jail where there's no drugs. Put him in jail where he's not taking drugs, And this happens even in rehab centers where they're forced to go in there. If they're forced to quit, see, and I explained in the addiction video, you gotta have to want to quit. If you're forced to quit, all that happens is that you'll get pissed off at the people forcing you to quit, and then you will, as soon as you get out of jail, you'll go back on because you don't want to quit when somebody else is forcing you to do it. And it's the same with validation. What happens is that when women get to their 40s and 50s and they're no longer getting looked at like they were in their 20s, even coming up to their 30s, they're fully addicted and they don't want to give it up. There's 50-year-old women on TikTok still dancing with skimpy clothes and trying to grasp onto the last bit of validation they can get. They're addicted and they don't want to stop. What happens when nature takes over and they start to lose those looks? They're being forced to give up their addiction, which means that they're being forced against their will. And what it is, because men stop looking at them, they start blaming and hating men because they see men as the ones that force them to stop that addiction, because men are no longer looking at them. So that's how they see it. That's how an addict sees it. They got the validation of men. All of a sudden, men stop looking at them. It's like men are making them stop that addiction. So this creates a huge hatred. Whenever you hating is an ego-boosting activity. So hating on people, it bloats their ego. And if they're directing their hate towards men, that's why they end up alone. Because they end up with this huge hatred towards men. And whenever they're in contact, they will dominate them, do things that they know. When bossy people know they're pissing people off by bossing them around. So that's what happens to women. And it turns them into this bossy, man-hating person. That is what makes them not attractive to men. That's not attractive. Another thing that happens, and it's all based because women are all about their looks, and I've dealt with older women, even 64-year-old women that liked me, and I prayed to see. I thought they were okay. They were good looking still. One had enormous, and I don't want to say the word, but she was still good looking. She had a boyfriend, and that's why I didn't do it. But she was my landlady, and I had to deal with her, and she would flirt with me, trying to give me signs. She wanted to cheat. That's another story, but what turned me off is her attitude. And what happens, and I've seen this, because I do research. So I'll get in situations where I can do research, undercover research. So I've got into situations with women, especially when they show me that they like me, and I'm seeing them over and over again. I'll flirt back, and what they do, because they're all about their looks, they expect you to still look at them. They'll play hard to get. They'll want you to call them beautiful. You're no longer beautiful. It's a different story. They can't get over this validation from their looks. They still want you, like they're not beautiful at all. They've got some good traits, but men have a huge drive for the bedroom, and they still hook up with older women for the bedroom fun. But it should be based on that. But they still want you to look at them, to fall in love with them as if they're this pretty goddess that they were when they were 20 years old, or a pretty goddess that is a 20-year-old girl. They can't drop that shit, man. And you're no longer a fucking 20-year-old girl. Stop acting and expecting the behaviors of that time. So they get stuck in this fucking unrealistic dream world where they wish that you would, they really want you to say, oh, you're gorgeous, when they're fucking not gorgeous. Then there's another thing that they do, and this has always fucking spun me out, especially when I was flirting with them. And that is, one of the things that happens is that they lose the beautiful look in their face, right? They start becoming wrinkly, their bodies get saggy, but more it's wrinkly. So they start to lose the feminine quality, the feminine beauty that they had. Some of them look even a bit masculine. And what do women do? And this trips me out. They go and get a short haircut, a haircut that's like a man. Keep your hair long. That's the only thing that defines you as a woman. Men like long hair. I'm totally turned off, especially when a woman is older and her face is wrinkled, and then she's got that man haircut. Then another thing is, the ones that I've met are insecure about their body. Guys don't care. Like a little bit of fat here or there is fine at that age. And I've known girls all through it, even when they're young, they have insecurities that are non-realistic that guys don't care about. I've had girls say, try and hide shit that I didn't care about. So this whole validation, this whole obsession with their looks takes them into a fantasy world where they think that guys want all this perfection, beauty, when guys don't. A lot of guys don't care. I liked little imperfections in girls. Some realize this, but the ones that are obsessed with their looks, obsessed with validation, don't. And they start, and when you have a 60-year-old woman that's still good looking but insecure about her body, it's no longer about your body. Now you can focus just on the high bedroom fun drive that guys have, and you lead with that. You be realistic. You're no longer 20 years old. Stop behaving like you are. Like all these 50-year-olds on TikTok wearing skimpy clothes and shit. Trying to act like they are. Basically, it's based on that addiction to validation that they still want guys to treat them, and they want to fall in love as if they're 15 years old when they're not. A man's not going to look at you like a 15-year-old girl that's gorgeous when you're 50 and 60. That's over. Now you work at that age. So, I just thought I'd explain that. Alright, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.